Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer and today I'm gamesplaining Tekhenu. So Tekhenu is a wonderful player game by Board and Dice. It's a relatively new game. I believe it came out near the beginning of this year, 2020. I may be incorrect on that date, but it's definitely a this year game, which fills me with a bit of joy. Tekhenu is by David Searchy and Danielle Taschini, who also did Tekhenu. I believe there's actually another one in this series of games that I need to get my head around and gamesplay, etc. But Tekhenu is a good game. I actually really enjoyed the game. I fear that my Gamesplanation, this review, is not going to paint it in the best light, but I will say right at the outset, I enjoyed the game. Now, the reason I'm saying it may not paint it in the best light is that it's one of those games that has a heck of a lot of minutiae kind of stuff going on. If you have a look at the Gamesplanations, you'll notice there's two videos. One of them is just the broad spectrum of the game. The second one is this is what's happening here, this is what's happening here, this is what's happening here, etc. all the way around. There are 6 different areas on the board. Each area does something different, and you need to find a way to make that able to happen. The whole idea of the game, in essence, is there is an obelisk in the middle of the board, and it will put shadow or light or kind of an in-between space onto each area, and the shade of each area will tell you which dice are able to be used for good and for, I think they call it tainted. And when you use the dice, and your whole turn is, I will use this die, you will place that onto a scale. And at the end of this section of the game or portion of the game, you need to have, once you've got 4 dice on there, you need to have as close to balance as possible. If you're too far to the tainted side, you'll lose some points. If you are too far to the other side, then you're likely to be later in the turn order for the next portion of the game. Now, the game itself, it has 2 turns. So your turn is taking a die. So you do 2 turns, and then that obelisk will rotate so that the dice that are available, the dice that are on the outside line or the good side and the evil side or tainted side, will change as the obelisk turns around. Once you've got 4 dice, you then go into a phase of basically saying this is going to be the first player for the next lot. Once you go through that lot again and again, so you're onto the second one of these phases, you go to a scoring. Then we do the whole lot again. So you kind of get halfway through the game, get a scoring, get all the way through the game for the second scoring, that is game. So it's kind of, in essence, it's 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. And that's fine, I don't disagree with that. What I found is that the filming, I have just done up to the first of these Ra sections, which is the change of who's the first player. And then I'm skipping to the final scoring, rather than having it play through all the way. And even that is quite a long gamesplay. Just be aware of that the gameplay and Gamesplanation are quite long and intensive for this game. There's so much going on the board. The rules actually say, like on your turn, you're literally choosing a die and doing whatever that section of the board is. Or you have the option of just taking resources in, which is, that saves us a couple of times, but be very aware that the rules actually say you don't want to do that action. As much as possible, don't do that action, because it's these god powers that are going to gain you extra stuff, gain you points for future endeavors, for future things, for just pushing through the game. So those who are kind of just collecting resources instead of doing those god things, they're really disadvantaged. And so finding a way to use a god power to give you the resource to be able to use another god power later in the game is actually where the game's at. And that's kind of, there's a funky little, if I do this, I've got enough stuff. And I've found that in doing the stuff, I've been really tight on having enough resource to do each thing. And you almost need to think a couple of turns ahead and say, okay, I want to do that thing. That's going to take the granite resource, so I need to find a way to get that resource up. How can I do that? Or each of the resources for various things. There's so much going on with this game. There really is a lot. And this is the whole thing of this game. I've found that I've played the game a few times now, but I've had to have the rules next to me or in my hand. Even doing the video, I've had the rules just off camera. just to remind me of this next step, this next step. Doing the actual playing is fine, but when you get to these other things, I've had to go back into rules, okay, and you get a point for doing this, this, and this, okay, you get points for this, you get points. I know that those markers are around the board, but I want to do them, I want to make sure I get them right, and I want to do them in order, and just so I make sure I don't miss anything, because there's so many little manipulations going on. The box itself says it's a 1 to 2 hour game. I fear that playing 2 players is going to take more than 2 hours. Playing with 4 players will take more than 4 hours on the first couple of plays. I fear that these box times, and I've said this a number of times now, but these box times are for people who just know what they're doing and bang, 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 bang. The problem is that to get to a point where you know what you're doing and you're able to move really quickly and so therefore hit the times on the box, you need to have played the game quite a number of times. In order to hit those times on the box, you need every player at the table to have played that game a number of times to be able to just go relatively quickly and make the decisions so that we can get through in those times. My instinct is getting to a point where I'm just saying, okay, whatever the time on the box is, double it, and that's probably really close to where we're going to be. This is one of those games that definitely will take that doubling of the time for the first few plays with the one group. If you've got a group that's played and then someone who hasn't, they are going to lose. That's my instinct on it. It's one of these games where you need to have played it to be able to do very well against other players. If you've got someone who hasn't had those multiple plays and doesn't know the angles to work at, I think they're going to really struggle on this game. And I fear that's part of where a lot of the games behind me are heading, is just there's a lot of, I have to have played it to be able to do well. If you've got a table of people who understand that and are happy to lose but learn the game to then be able to play it again, that's fine. The problem is, at least my problem, is that if I've got people at the table, we're going to play a game once, we probably won't see that game again. If we do see it again, it will be a year later when everyone's pretty much forgotten how to play it. So we have to relearn the rules and re-go through the stuff. And that's an issue. I've found personally that I'm much preferring to lean towards games that are easier to get to the table. While they have a lot of thinking involved, the actual gamesplanation of getting stuff happening is quite narrow and quite easy, as opposed to a lot of the games that are coming at the moment where they're saying, okay, just do everything, and there's all this stuff going on, this minutia of stuff going on that draws your attention. And look, it's all really good stuff and I enjoy doing it all, but do I need to do it all? And I think that's the real end question. Do I need to do all of this stuff to make this a good game? Is there a way for us to move forward with these games without having to remember the tiny rules, that get a point here, that get 3 points there, to get those things just really slow a game down? Even to the point I did a playthrough of a prototype the other night, which it was a relatively straightforward game, but the scoring at the end was just very time consuming. And that's one of the things that he's looking at, and that's fine, and that'll grow. But this whole idea of how long does it take us to understand is really the thing that designers need to be looking for, the companies that are producing these games need to be looking for. How long will it take for a player at the table to be able to go, yes, I understand what I'm doing? Because I fear that playing this game, we don't have that I understand until really, really far into the game, at which point we may have decided we don't like it. Or we've decided, yeah, it's a fun game, we're enjoying it, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And that really frustrates me, it really worries me. So that is my thoughts on Tekhenu. I think it's a really worthwhile game. I think it's a good game, but you're going to have the time to know the rules, or at least have someone who knows the rules and someone who's happy to say, no, you're going to need to use 4 of this to do that, or push people in the right direction rather than just getting in and playing and hoping that everyone else is caught up, because I guarantee you they have not. Look, I'll leave it there. If you would like to go ahead and watch my Gamesplay and Gamesplanation, my Gamesplay is in 2 sections. The first section is just literally the thoughts on how to play the game. The second section is on what each section of the board does. Please go ahead and watch those Gamesplay and Gamesplanation. to get a feel for how the game actually plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.